Hey, so today I want to talk to you about what is education. So I'm going to outline my framework for education, or at least my analysis of what it is, and then I'm going to talk about how CoALA intends to create a better system. Okay, so let's consider education as basically um, it's a problem about relationships. Okay, so we have learners and we have experts. Okay, so really we have people, students, people that want to learn things, right? And we have people that know things, and we really are trying to transfer knowledge. We're trying to pass knowledge down from experts to learners. That's basically what education is. Okay, so now, why do we have schools? Well, schools basically are the systems used to transfer knowledge down to the next generation. So what I want to do in CoALA is basically simplify this whole situation and just create a platform where you have a learner profile. So here's a learner profile, and it talks about all the things that the learner wants to learn. Okay, and then you have a mentor profile or an expert profile, and so here's their smiley faces. And these are all the things that the mentor wants to teach. So a mentor might know a lot, but might not like really enjoy teaching a lot of things. So these are just the things that the mentor likes to teach. And then we can have them meet together and exchange knowledge. Okay, so that's phase one. Phase one is just creating a system that simplifies this process of transferring knowledge down from one generation to another. Okay, phase one. Phase two is asking the question about why. What are the aims of education? Okay, we understand the process is to pass it down, but why do we want to pass things down? And that's because we have social goals and social needs basically, right? And so CoALA frames these social needs into four essential questions. Right? The first question is about livability. And you can read this on, livability is how are we going to, as a human race, how are we going to meet our needs of clean water, habitable shelter, nutritious food, and care. Where care basically is all the care we need as human beings: emotional care, physical support, health care, mental, psychological care. All of that is present here, right? So basically, the learner and mentor platform is supposed to help us answer this question as a human race, right? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to answer this question? And a lot of our human activity revolves around trying to answer this question for ourselves. It's a question that it's what's called an anchoring question, because there will never be a complete answer for it, because there's always something new that's going to come up, right? But it's a question that we continually need to ask ourselves, so we can anchor a human enterprise around this question. Okay, so that's question one. Question two is co-creation. About co-creation. Question co-creation. How are we going to co-create the future for ourselves and society. Okay, so this question is a little bit more abstract than the previous one, right? The previous one is very clear. It's about livability. This one's, though, about how we're going to imagine a world, and how are we going to actually do that? How are we going to brainstorm? How are we going to create discussion groups? How are we going to determine which ideas to go off and which ideas to leave behind? All these are aspects of co-creation, including what should we experiment? What should we prototype? What should we investigate? Okay, and so as mentors and learners, we need to learn how to co-create together. And I need to fix that. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next question. The next question is about ourselves to be the best we can be as individuals, as teams, and communities, and world. Okay. All right, so now the first question is very practical, right? Really lays down what we need to create for livability. The second question is about creation itself. How do you brainstorm and create ideas for innovation and change? The third question is, how do you execute it? How do you actually live up to the creations that we want to create for ourselves? What sort of training sessions should be? What sort of what sort of disciplines should we take on as individuals or as teams or communities to execute effectively? All right, and lastly, the last question pertains to what I call inclusive spirituality. And what I simply mean by inclusive spirituality, it's the most general aspect to spirituality I think that anyone can agree with. And that's basically framed as, how can we share being with a capital B with each other and the earth. Okay? So think of it this way. We're all here on this planet, and we share this planet with each other. We share the planet with different races, with different cultures, with different religions, with different animals, and we're all trying to coexist and survive within a huge biosphere, a huge ecosystem. So how can we share our being with all the other beings here? And what does that look like? That, to me, is a spiritual question. It's a question about believing something bigger than yourself, and believing in yourself in that bigger scope of the world. So moving on, basically, just to recap, what are the aims of education? Okay, what are we trying to pass down to the next generation, and what would we like them to be able to do? Well, we could frame what we're trying to pass down in terms of the 4 anchoring questions, right? But we still need a system to help people do that. So on the website, we have what I want to create, and what I need funding for, basically, is to create this network of profiles so that people can connect with each other in terms of what they are good at doing, what they want to be good at doing, and what they want to create with each other. And that basically is education, but also the whole system is authentic learning. All right. So now the next question is, what is the authentic learning process? So what is authentic learning specifically? Okay. So authentic learning is basically learning by being out there in the world doing something. And there's always an authentic learning cycle. Whether you intentionally intend for there to be a cycle or not, it just happens, okay? And it happens in phases. So there's a check-in. It's where you check in with yourself, or you check in to see what's present, right? So you got in the kitchen, and you see that there's dishes and different things in the sink, and you check the fridge and you see what sort of food you have available. Okay, so that's a check-in. That's just basically like, hey, what's present? Then after you check in, then you create a plan. Sometimes people skip over this step, and that's where the power of this authentic learning cycle is to really leverage each step of learning. You create a plan, and the plan is, okay, given what I have present in front of me, how can I make the best use of it to serve my intended goals? In the case of cooking dinner, it would be, like, what do I want to cook to feed myself? And that plan could just be a quick, mental plan, or it could be a written out plan. It could be as complicated as you need to make it. Then you work the plan. So that's the next phase. Call that working the plan. And as you're working the plan, then you realize that maybe you don't have an ingredient, or maybe you would like to add something else, and or maybe you don't have enough to have as much of the recipe as you thought you would, or whatever it was. Things come up as you work the plan. And so that's what working the plan means. It means the plan was a framework that was initially created based on what you knew, and then you have to stretch it out. You have to work it. You have to adjust it. You have to move it around when you're actually enacting it in real time. Okay. After you work the plan, then there's a reflection. So part of the working plan here could be eating the meal, for example. So here's a reflection. And a reflection is an evaluation of the whole process. To think about what worked and what didn't, and how you can do it better next time. How maybe you should have some more ingredients on hand, or whatever it might be. This is where a lot of the learning actually happens, is in the reflection. And a lot of people don't actually take a moment to reflect and document that reflection. After you reflect, then you adjourn. And adjourning is actually a crucial thing. Adjourning is where basically you let yourself focus on other things, but your brain is still processing. You had a reflection right after you did it. That reflection prompts you to keep thinking about ways of optimizing, or maybe start noticing other things that you didn't initially notice while you were actually in the learning cycle. And so when you adjourn, it's like being in the shower. The shower ideas you get when you're showering, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, that's a great idea. That happens when you let your brain rest and recuperate. So this is the authentic learning cycle. After you adjourn, you check back in, and you do it all over again. So in terms of a learning unit, that's what we want to capture. One learning unit is those 5 phases of learning. 5 phases. Okay. So now, what does this all mean? Okay, great. So let's go back. So let's suppose I have a learner. We'll call him Sam. and I have a mentor. We'll call the mentor Mary. Okay. Sam and Mary want to create a learning activity, right? Sam wants to learn something, Mary wants to teach him something. So they check in. And in the check-in, they figure out exactly what is it that they want to do together. What is it they want to do either that day or that month or that year or however length of time they want to be together. And that also is part of the check-in, is to determine what that relationship looks like. Then they create a plan of action for what they're going to do. Then they carry it out. They work the plan. Then they reflect. And then they adjourn. They take a break, and then maybe they don't decide to work together again, or maybe they do. Maybe this learning cycle is complete. Okay, so now what CoALA does is documents this process. So as a learning guide, what I do is I document this. I facilitate the process, so I make sure that both Sam and Mary are comfortable going through each step of the way. And then I document it so that at the end of it we talk about what exactly was accomplished, so that Sam can put that on his learning log for the next time that he has a mentorship opportunity or next time he wants to learn something. Mary, and so then other mentors can also look through all the learning cycles for learners and see where people are in their learning pathways. Okay, so that's how you facilitate a learning relationship between a learner and a mentor toward a specific goal that they come together for. Okay, so now, what about, okay, so in terms of creating this relationship, there's a lot of different degrees of let's see, a lot of different degrees of working together that are possible. So a mentor could serve the purpose of just giving advice or just helping you develop your plan, for example. A mentor can be an evaluator. So, for example, after you do like a work of art, they come in, they give you critique to give you guidance about, what's strong about it and what you can work on later. A mentor can be a co-creator, someone that you collaborate with that is just more experienced, so that you can learn by watching them actually do it. So a mentor can be a role model in that sense. A role model. Okay? And whatever happens between you and the mentor is dependent on you and the mentor. Obviously, some of these things take much more time. Like, for example, a consultant is someone that just comes in and out of your life to give you some guiding advice, whereas a role model or a co-creator is someone that is really hands-on with you. Okay. There's a lot of mentors, so these are people mentors, but there are a lot of mentors that are also not necessarily alive even. Authors, for example. People that have written books are mentors. By reading their book and understanding what they're passing down, you're basically taking advantage. Khan Academy is a mentor. He's a mentor, and he's created a whole system to help you learn. Any college class. So basically what I'm trying to say is, as a learner, you have access to so much support out there in the world, either through living mentors or mentors that have passed down what I call an educational artifact, like a book or an online class. or a lecture or something like that. And what's up to you and the learning guide, the authentic learning guide, which is the role that I take on, is how to leverage all of that towards the goals that you have as a student. And we document all that in the authentic learning cycle. So at the end of the day, this is what we're going to have, right? So the CoALA website is going to be a networking platform between learners and mentors, and 2, a system for facilitating learning, right, to really help the learners and mentors work together as well as best as possible, and 3, a system to document and accredit learning, to keep track of what was learned, so that future generations can see, like for example, if your learning pathway is documented, then the next student can look through your learning pathway and learn how they can learn by looking at how you learned, and can avoid making the same mistakes that you made, for example. But this also serves as, basically, it could serve as like a resume or a portfolio or any number of things that can show people what you learned and how you learned it. And so that's what CoALA is, Cooperative Authentic Learning Association. That's the name for the organization. But what it's intended to do is create a system for these 3 different things, which basically goes down to fundamentally improving education from the definition of what it's supposed to be. If you have any questions, please let me know. A lot of people have been asking me to be very detailed in explaining what CoALA is all about. I've provided a lot of written documentation about it, but oftentimes it helps to have a video to really break things down. And I'm looking for funding to execute this system, and all it takes is $5 a month or $10 a month, depending on how much you can give. Basically, right now, in order to support me on this project, I'm only needing $2,000 a month in order to execute all the work that needs to be put in to really develop this system. All right, and $2,000 a month spread out over 200 people is really $10 a person. Okay, but we can have 500 people, and that would be, if I do math real quick, $4 a person. All right, so think in terms of crowdfunding. If you contribute just a little bit, then you will be part of the group that really pushes this forward to make it happen for everybody. Okay, I really appreciate you sitting through this video, and I really hope that it sheds some light on the process of how it works, and I hope that you can, if you have questions, feel free to contact me. I would love to talk to anybody, and if you want to prototype any of the systems or help me develop the systems, if you know how to build websites, if you have something you'd love to teach, if you have something that you're yearning to learn, I need all of that. So please speak up, and please donate. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good night. Bye.